Pokemon Sword and Shield will restrict the transfer of certain Pokemon into the Galar region. Only Pokemon with a Galar Pokedex will be allowed in. My name is Henry the 42nd, and today I'm going to be talking about the pros behind this potentially controversial issue. Now, I am going to be avoiding spoilers in both footage and in discussion, as I myself am avoiding spoilers for the upcoming Pokemon Sword and Shield. That said, one interesting bit of news did reach me in that the Galar region is going to have a restricted Pokedex, but for real this time. I remember it being weird in Pokemon Sun and Moon when my national dex didn't get updated after transferring new Pokemon over, and now it's starting to make a bit more sense. And I'm going to be honest, this change was long overdue. The Pokemon series has been dealing with the issue of power creep for a long time. Now, for those that are uneducated about the idea of power creep, it's basically that as a series continues that has competitive aspects to it, they have to keep making the new content, in this case the new Pokemon, more and more powerful in order to make you desire it, in order to make you want to buy the game and try it out for yourself and feel better, new, improved. The issue is, when you do this for 7 consecutive generations of Pokemon, it starts to make the older generations look really bad, with the exception of very specific Pokemon who have dominated the meta over time, or Pokemon who have gotten updates, with the examples being Mega Charizard, or say Clefable with its updated ability and typing. What this change does is it gives Gamefreak more control over what Pokemon are actually allowed to be used competitively, and as a result, they don't have to, say, compare their new Pokemon to something as powerful as Tyranitar or Landorus, or even an Ultra Beast. They have much more freedom to make Pokemon with more toned back stats, and it won't actually be crap because it won't be outclassed by a Pokemon that already exists. Now, I'm really only looking at this on paper because the actual execution of it falls into Game Freak's hands. Game Freak could still create new stats and new Pokemon that are absurd and, as a result, dominate the now restricted meta. Game Freak could also put competitive staples into the Galar decks, which, as a result, wouldn't really change the competitive scene that much. But the fact that Game Freak's even making the decision in the first place means that they're thinking about this and they're looking at the series' long-term survivability, which appeals to someone like myself who has been playing these games his entire life and is feeling a bit burned out. One of the reasons I am burned out is because I get a little depressed that my favorite Pokemon just can't be justifiably used. Like, take a Pokemon like Golem, like the original Golem, not a lone Golem, right? Like, why would you use that over any other rock ground type? They all have better typing or abilities or move pools to call out their name. But say if Golem is the only Pokemon in the Galar Dex that meets that description, then suddenly there's a case for Golem. You can use Golem. And I fail to see how that could be a bad thing when you apply it to so many beloved Pokemon that have been long forgotten. But that's just a multiplayer benefit, I know some of you are thinking. How does this affect me, the person who only cares about the single player and who uses whatever Pokemon I want? Well, I think this does benefit the single player, and that's because of how it benefits the multiplayer. Let's take a theoretical example here. Let's say Heatran hasn't been available for the last 2 generations, and this new generation takes place in an Arctic setting. Regardless of how well Heatran fits into the world there, Game Freak is inclined to make Heatran available. Otherwise, the player who has been playing for the last 2 generations is going to have access to a Pokemon a new player does not have access to. But now hop to a metagame where Heatran simply doesn't exist, then Game Freak doesn't have to forcibly shoehorn Heatran into the game, thus improving the overall world feel of the game, making it more immersive and making Heatran more rare and exciting to encounter when it does eventually reappear. That's something that has to be taken into consideration, is that these Pokemon will appear in later installments, and their inclusion is going to be that much more exciting when that happens. I can't tell you how numb I felt when I caught Mewtwo in Ultra Moon and threw it in the pile of my free other Mewtwo's. Now, catching Mewtwo will be much more of an event. Now I do have to move on to my last point, which is about that pile of free Mewtwo's. That this potentially punishes players who have been playing the game for a long time. As someone who has completed the national dex, has a large collection of shinies, and has worked very hard to get where he is in the current Pokemon games, I'm gonna be kind of mad that I can't transfer any of these hard-earned Pokemon to the new game. Which is why Gamefreak needs to take one more step. We need an expansion to Pokemon Home, something like Pokemon Battle Revolution, something to compete with Smogon's Showdown Simulator, where you can just transfer any Pokemon and all Pokemon are on the table, and that's it. That's all that game is, just competitive battling, online, any rule set, finding strangers. If Gamefreak does this, first off, I think everyone will be happy in general that there's a game dedicated to competitive battling, and second off, it will let the single player games be more independent without people having to give up their hard-earned collections and getting rid of the future problem of people feeling like their Pokemon are worthless as they will no longer be usable in the next generation. But even though a game like this hasn't been announced yet, I think it's a no-brainer for it to eventually happen, especially with this change. In the meantime, I'm going to be positive about it because this was once again long overdue, and I think it'll be interesting to see how it affects this series as a whole. Now, if this is a problem, if this is bad, well, we'll have to experiment, we'll have to see. But I'm confident that this is going to breathe some new life into Pokemon, which is very substantial for the fact that this is going to be the first major Pokemon game on a home console. And you know what? I'm looking forward to it, like, more than ever before now. And I'm hopeful that this is going to be the game that breathes the new life into the series I've been looking for so long. I hope other Pokemon veterans feel the same way.